Everyone today is chasing happiness. We are told that happiness is the ultimate goal of life. Advertisements promise it. Social media displays it. Motivational speakers preach it. Everywhere you look, the message is the same. If you work hard enough, earn enough, achieve enough, then happiness will finally arrive. But something strange is happening. Despite living in the most comfortable era in human history, millions of people feel deeply dissatisfied with their lives. People have more entertainment than ever before, more convenience, more freedom. Yet anxiety, depression, and emotional exhaustion seem to be everywhere. Why? Why does happiness seem to slip further away the more people chase it? More than 2,000 years ago, the philosophers of Stoicism warned about this exact problem. One of the most influential Stoic thinkers, Epictetus, believed that humanity had misunderstood happiness from the very beginning. According to him, happiness cannot be chased. Because the moment you start chasing happiness, you make it impossible to catch. Instead, Stoicism proposes something far more powerful. Stop chasing happiness and focus on something deeper, something stronger, something that cannot be taken away by circumstances. Modern culture teaches us a dangerous belief. It tells us that happiness comes from acquiring the right things. A better job, more money, a perfect relationship, a beautiful house, recognition from others. But if you observe carefully, something becomes clear. Every time someone reaches one of these goals, the happiness rarely lasts. For a short moment, there is excitement, a brief sense of satisfaction. Then the mind adapts. Suddenly, the achievement that once felt extraordinary begins to feel normal. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. The human mind constantly adjusts to new circumstances, which means external achievements cannot produce lasting happiness. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology. They realized that building happiness on external events is like building a house on sand. Because the external world is unpredictable. People change. Opportunities disappear. Plans fail. Life rarely unfolds exactly the way we expect. And if your happiness depends on perfect circumstances, then your happiness will always be fragile. This is why Stoicism teaches something radically different. Instead of asking, "How can I make my life perfect?" the Stoics ask a more important question: "How can I become strong enough to handle any life?" The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote something remarkable in his personal journal. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This single idea sits at the heart of Stoic philosophy. The world is full of things you cannot control. You cannot control other people's opinions. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control the past. You cannot control unexpected problems that appear in life. But there is one domain that always remains under your authority. Your mind, your reactions, your character. The Stoics believed that most suffering happens because people try to control things that were never theirs to control. They obsess over outcomes. They worry about the future. They become angry at circumstances. But this only creates frustration, because reality does not obey human expectations. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from a different strategy. Instead of controlling the world, control yourself. At first, this idea might sound passive. Some people misunderstand Stoicism and assume it teaches people to stop caring about life. But the opposite is true. Stoicism is not about apathy. It is about clarity. When you stop trying to control everything, something powerful happens. Your energy becomes focused. Instead of wasting emotional strength worrying about uncontrollable events, you invest your effort into the things that truly belong to you. Your decisions, your behavior, your discipline, your values. This shift transforms the way you experience life. Because happiness no longer depends on everything going perfectly, it depends on whether you are living with integrity, and this kind of happiness cannot easily be destroyed. Why chasing happiness makes you miserable. There is a psychological paradox hidden inside the pursuit of happiness. The more people chase happiness directly, the more they become aware of its absence. Imagine someone constantly asking themselves, "Am I happy yet? Why don't I feel happy? Why are other people happier than me?" These questions create pressure. Instead of enjoying life, the person begins to evaluate every experience through the lens of happiness. And this evaluation slowly drains the joy out of life itself. The Stoics believe that happiness is a side effect, not a target. It appears naturally when a person focuses on living well, not when they obsess over feeling good. This is why Stoicism encourages people to pursue virtue instead of pleasure. Virtue means living with wisdom, courage, self-control, and justice. According to Stoic philosophy, a person who develops these qualities becomes emotionally resilient. Life may still bring difficulties, but their inner foundation remains strong. So if happiness is not the goal, what should you pursue instead? The Stoics give a surprisingly simple answer. Focus on becoming a better human being. Focus on developing character. Focus on mastering your thoughts and reactions. This philosophy was not only taught by scholars, it was practiced by leaders, warriors, and rulers. One of the most famous examples is Seneca, who believed that inner discipline was the key to freedom. He wrote that the person who depends on external pleasure becomes a slave to circumstances. But the person who controls their mind becomes free. True freedom, according to Stoicism, is not the ability to do whatever you want. It is the ability to remain calm, rational, and purposeful regardless of what happens around you. And this is where the real transformation begins. Because when you stop chasing happiness, something unexpected happens. The 3 Stoic principles that replace the pursuit of happiness. If the Stoics believe that chasing happiness leads to frustration, then what exactly did they recommend instead? Their philosophy can be summarized in 3 powerful principles. Principles that, when practiced consistently, transform the way a person experiences life. These principles are not complicated theories. They are practical mental disciplines designed to strengthen the human mind. And for over 2,000 years, they have helped people develop resilience in the face of uncertainty. The first principle is this. Principle 1. Control what you can control. One of the most famous teachings in Stoicism comes from the philosopher Epictetus. He explained that life can be divided into 2 categories: things within our control and things outside our control. Within our control are our thoughts, our actions, and our responses. Outside our control are other people, circumstances, and the unpredictable events of life. Most people spend their lives focusing on the second category. They worry about what others think. They obsess over outcomes. They become frustrated when events unfold in ways they cannot influence. But this creates constant emotional turbulence. Imagine trying to control the weather. No matter how much you complain about the rain, the sky will not listen. Yet many people treat life in exactly the same way. They fight reality instead of accepting it. The Stoics believed that peace begins when we recognize the limits of our control. When something happens that is outside your control, the Stoic response is simple: accept it. But acceptance does not mean weakness. It means clarity. Instead of wasting energy resisting reality, you redirect your attention to the one domain that truly belongs to you: your response. And this shift is incredibly powerful, because even when life becomes difficult, your inner world remains stable. Principle 2. Turn obstacles into training. The second Stoic principle is even more surprising. Instead of avoiding difficulty, the Stoics believe that challenges are necessary for personal growth. Modern culture encourages comfort. People try to remove stress from their lives. They avoid situations that feel uncomfortable. But according to Stoicism, comfort rarely produces strength. Think about physical training. Muscles grow stronger when they encounter resistance. Without resistance, they remain weak. The same principle applies to the human mind. Difficult experiences force us to develop patience, discipline, and resilience. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius captured this idea beautifully when he wrote, "The obstacle in the path becomes the path." In other words, the very challenges that seem to block your progress are often the experiences that shape your character. A setback becomes an opportunity to practice perseverance. Criticism becomes a chance to develop emotional control. Uncertainty becomes a training ground for courage. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the Stoic mindset, "What can this situation teach me?" This perspective transforms suffering. Many people build their sense of identity on unstable foundations. They depend on recognition from others. They rely on achievements for self-worth. They measure their value through status, wealth, or approval. But these things are fragile. Recognition can disappear. Status can change. Circumstances can collapse unexpectedly. The Stoics believed that a wise person builds their identity on something far more stable. A person who values wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline possesses something that cannot easily be taken away. External circumstances may fluctuate, but character remains constant. This is why Stoicism places such emphasis on self-mastery. Because the strongest form of happiness is not emotional excitement. It is inner peace. A calm and steady mind that remains balanced regardless of what happens. Another surprising aspect of Stoic philosophy is their skepticism toward pleasure. This does not mean that the Stoics rejected enjoyment completely. They appreciated good food, friendship, and meaningful experiences. But they warned against making pleasure the central goal of life. Pleasure is temporary. And when people become dependent on temporary feelings, they become vulnerable. For example, someone who depends on praise will suffer whenever criticism appears. Someone who depends on comfort will struggle when life becomes difficult. But the Stoics believe that a disciplined mind remains steady regardless of emotional fluctuations. Pleasure may come, pleasure may go, but the Stoic remains grounded. This emotional stability is what the Stoics considered true freedom. One of the most fascinating practices in Stoicism was something called voluntary discomfort. Philosophers like Seneca sometimes intentionally expose themselves to temporary hardship. They might sleep on the floor, wear simple clothing, or eat basic meals. Why would someone willingly experience discomfort? Because it trains the mind to realize something important. You can survive without luxury. When people become too accustomed to comfort, they begin to fear losing it. This fear creates anxiety. But when you practice occasional simplicity, you remove that fear. You realize that happiness does not depend on luxury. It depends on perspective. And once this realization becomes clear, external circumstances lose their power to control your emotional state. The ultimate goal of Stoicism is not happiness in the conventional sense. It is freedom. Freedom from unnecessary worry. Freedom from emotional chaos. Freedom from the endless need for approval. A Stoic mind is calm, disciplined, and focused. It does not panic when problems arise. It does not collapse under criticism. It does not become arrogant when success appears. Instead, it remains balanced. Like a strong tree rooted deeply in the ground, capable of withstanding storms. And when a person develops this inner stability, something remarkable begins to happen. Life becomes lighter. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because the mind has become stronger. The Stoics understood something that modern culture often forgets. Happiness cannot be forced. It cannot be chased. It cannot be guaranteed by external achievements. But it can appear quietly as a consequence of living wisely. When you focus on developing character, when you learn to accept what you cannot control, when you transform obstacles into opportunities for growth, something unexpected happens. Peace begins to replace anxiety. Clarity replaces confusion. And slowly, almost unnoticed, happiness begins to emerge. Not as a destination you reached, but as a companion that walks beside you. Subscribe to our channel